Neverland is a mindset and a platform to inspire those who seek inspiration, to motivate people to never give up, and to encourage people to dream, and to drive people to better themselves. Welcome back to another episode of Neverland Success Stories. We're here today with WINSTON Davies. Welcome, Winston.
What's happening? You alright?
Yeah, good, man. Good to have you. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Primarily, I'm a father, I'm a husband. Day to day, I run a heating company. I'm a chairman of a charity. We help disadvantaged young boys. I act when I can. Generally just trying to do the best I can in the world.
Okay, good. So you do the heating stuff, because that's a vast variety of things there.
Yeah.
So the heating thing, give us a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, literally it's just a domestic heating company. We go out, we fix people's boilers, radiators, all that sort of stuff. I had a company before, 20-man company, that folded, and then 3 years ago started the new company. Yeah, and I suppose I'll explain how I got into that as we get along.
Cool. What's the company called?
Avenue Heating.
Cool. Father thing, first, that's quite a good one.
Father thing.
Yeah, so how many children you got?
I've got 3 boys and I've got 3 nephews.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. So anyway, so you got six
so I've got
boys,
3 boys, about 3 nephews, but my nephews are like my boys.
Yeah. So 6 boys, a lot of boys.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. Good for you to be around to be that role model for them, because I guess a lot of us haven't had that. I'm not saying you have or haven't, but there's a lot of people out there that haven't had
I
that.
didn't, no.
Yeah. So it's good for you to be around to help them,
100%. I mean, it's not as straightforward as that, because my eldest, I don't see him at the moment at all. But my others, it's I'm going to be there. I'm going to be involved in their life no matter what. And yeah, like I said, not having a role model, a male role model to help guide me as I was growing up, that was a challenge. So for me, it's one of my main things in life is that I give that guidance to my sons and my nephews, to help them navigate. So that they say it's a good thing to learn by your own mistakes, but better to learn from others. So when you can help to navigate your own children and your own, with my nephews, that for me is a blessing to be able to give that to them. Because I know they're going to be able to get further along in life just by having that.
Kind of skip the things that you made mistakes on.
100%, exactly.
On to the charity. So what's that?
So we're a charity called Southside Young Leaders Academy. We help disadvantaged young boys in South London with leadership and educational training development.
So important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The leadership one is massive.
Crazy. So we do we run different programs. So we got 4 years national lottery funding last year, and that is to run different programs to do with anti-gang, anti-knife, entrepreneurial programs. But the thing is, we all run English and maths, for example, tuition. And then we were, obviously before the lockdown, we were a face-to-face organisation. So on a Saturday, we'll run a leadership programme. And it's about thinking skills. It's about, how do I make my own individual choices, not with the pressures of what my peers may want me to do. Yeah. We also do excursions out of London. So we'll go to the Isle of Wight and we'll do sailing. So that these boys that may well not have left their postcode or in their borough, they're then taken out of London into a new experience, a new area, and to do something completely different.
Which is so important as well.
Yeah, 100%. Opens up new pathways in their brain and new horizons about, oh, I could do that, and what about that, and who are they? So it's asking the questions, get them asking questions. And another thing that we have is a program running where we work with a trust, and what we do is that some of the boys who are suitable, and it's not just because they're a certain way of in their intelligence, but just whether they're socially suitable or even educationally suitable. We have a program where they basically go to prestigious boarding schools outside of London. So for example, we've got one boy going to Eton this year, and that again is showing them about social mobility. So they're gonna be, our boys are going to be in classrooms with the sons of multi-billionaires, from completely different walks of life, and for them they're coming together and again showing them new horizons and new ideas about what they can become and where they can go in life. It's so important.
It is, for sure it is. It really is. Oh, acting. So tell us a bit about that. What sort of stuff do you do? What was it?
Been acting from a young age. So from about 12, I think it was, I was at school and I first got into a few school productions and that, and I was just like, oh, okay, this is this is all right. And then I went to like a stage school thing when I was a teenager, and yeah, dropped it out. But then the last, I don't know, 7-8 years I've been back at it. Yeah, I've done a few notable things. I was on Game of Thrones. I'm on a few like British films, a few commercials. I was in a play in Brighton a few years ago. But I think for me, with acting is that's a real passion. I love it.
Yeah.
And I will do it for free.
Yeah.
When I get paid for it, I'm like, you know, I'm buzzing. You know, I said I was standing on the set of Game of Thrones between takes, and there was one moment where I think I had 3-4 people. So like someone was doing my costume, someone was doing my makeup, someone was sorting out my mic, and then someone else, this killed it. Someone else had a strips for sweat strips because we was in Croatia. And they were coming along, dabbing the sweat off my forehead, and I'm like, no way. So yeah, like I say, it's a passion. So I will always do it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Something you didn't mention, you might not put yourself in this bracket, but motivational speaker, obviously you do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, I suppose it just sort of is a natural thing of me. So I feel, what happened is, I randomly had a meeting with someone about 5 years ago, was it? 5-6 years ago. And I went with a friend, we went for a curry. And there was a guy there, Brad Burton. And me and Brad got talking. Brad's the UK's #1 motivational speaker, business speaker. And Brad said to me, we were talking, and he said, Winston, he goes, you need to stop hiding from yourself. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you need to start sharing your story. And I was like, and up until that point, there is no way I would have been sat here. No way would I have been sharing openly about my experiences, my thoughts and whatnot. So from that chance meeting, we kind of hit it off, and he sort of helped me to navigate round about how am I actually going to speak to people and how am I going to share the story and give me the confidence to do it. And I started just doing a few little things, and I started getting invited to speak at like a youth offending unit, a school, college, a few charities. I think I lost my business a few years ago, and at that point I was just like, you know what, how can I give motivation to someone, because I can't even motivate myself. And I was going through, you know, some tough times, you know. And then when I worked through that, I worked hard, I built myself back up. And there's a thing I talk about filling your cup. My cup was empty. I was down. I was out. And I worked, and I built myself back up, and I started filling my cup. And my cup started overflowing. I was like, right, I'm ready.
No, it's time.
Yeah. And actually, it's like, sometimes you find yourself in a position where you're waiting for someone to give you permission to do something. And literally, I think it was even like the start of last year, Brad actually asked me to come and speak at Aston Villa Football Club. He had an event there, a few hundred business owners, and said, look, I want you to come. And I was thinking, not really quite sure. Funnily enough, it's a year ago today, February the 6th, 2020, yeah. And it was like, I'm not really sure how it's going to work, because these people, they're not from my world, they might not understand me. And he said, look, Winston, come, please. So I came, and something happened in that room. Like, the energy that was like going around that room was crazy. And by me bearing my soul to these strangers, and what they gave me back, and some of the messages that I received afterwards were mind-blowing. Like, I mean, literally just, some things change your life, or to change parts of your trajectory, and that event there changed so much. And then I was like, well, actually, again, like, and then when the lockdown hit, because I had been booked to go and speak at a few different things coming up last year. Lockdown hit, everything's cancelled. You know, I was going to go to America and speak. You know, I was going to go to South Africa, and there's like, things got cancelled. I was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, but what am I waiting for? Because I've got my mobile phone, I've got a social media. Let me just speak my truth. Let me just share who I am, and what do I feel about things. And through doing that, I've connected with so many people. You know, talk about energy connects energy, yeah? And like, when you are bringing something, and someone, it doesn't matter if they're on another side of the planet, when they feel that, you can't help but come together.
Yeah.
So energy is like, when you put a certain amount of energy out there into the world, people will connect with that no matter what. You put it out there, someone could be on another side of the planet and they will want to connect with you. And it's like, when you feel that, like, it's crazy. So for me, it was interesting as well, because as much as I was putting out content, and like for me it was like, well, let me put out things which are going to try and be thought-provoking, but also get people to then I don't know, to inspire people, to a degree, and just show them actually as well, like, it's not just like, oh, happy days, everything's positive, because certain times I will show things where I'm being vulnerable and actually showing the truth of it, because social media is so much like, that picture postcard, I want to see my highlight reel. But when like certain things I've shared with people, actually things where I'm not upbeat, I've said some things where I'm feeling down and not feeling right, and just to let people know that it's okay not to be okay. But what was interesting is that when I was sharing things, particularly last year, there was a wealth of like negative people, like sometimes commenting, sometimes inboxing, and I was just like, that's crazy. You're taking time out of your day to try and say something negative to me, or say negative to someone else that knows me, or whatever it is. It's like, where's your thought process at that point? Like, you're living in such a negative world that you can't even see that there's goodness over there, or there's some possibility there, there's an opportunity there. And it's like, do you know what? Good luck to you. Cool. I'm not even engaging that, that energy there from, talk about energy, like my energy is here and I'm protecting that, and you can just do what you're doing over there, but you ain't penetrating me. Yeah.
All right, so, okay, what about, give me a story, like a never giving up story. So a time where, all your chips were down or whatever, and you just thought, I'm not giving up here. I'm going to get to the next level.
I've spoken about this a lot. And sometimes I'm like, you're talking about that again. But if you're talking about my story, it's fundamentally pivotal in my direction. And I was in my mid-20s. I'd graduated from university. I had a job. I was working in Belfast, and the thing is that I never put any effort in. Up and all throughout my teens, all throughout my early 20s, I never put any effort in. No effort into exams, no effort into any jobs, no effort. I just thought, I'm smart. I'll be all right. I had a challenging upbringing and childhood, and I kind of just thought it don't matter. I didn't really have a high self-belief and self-worth. So I was just like, I'll just do whatever. And I lost my job in Belfast, and 3 months later, I found myself driving down the road with a car full of skunk, 30 kilos, front seat, back seat boot. And I'm driving along and I'm like, yeah, I'm all right, I'm okay, no worries. Next minute, I look in my mirror and it's like police, like 3 cars back. I'm like, nah, they're not for me. Let's carry on, listen to music, soul child and all that, I'm all right. I've got a date tonight, I'm all right. 2 cars back, 1 car back, and I'm like, no. And then that's it, lights come on, vroom, 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 from everywhere they come, boxed in. Next day, I'm in a maximum security prison, and it's like, and I'm sitting there on my first morning on the wing, and I come out and I look out. It's crazy because, like, you could imagine what you're gonna see. You've got like fiends running around trying to get whatever they're trying to get. You've got people trying to get showers, and it's loads of activity, people doing what they're doing. But one thing that you don't get from watching these TV programs about prison, that is actually the smell. And there was this smell that hit me. I was already in the cell, but when I stepped out as well, and it's like this, I can't explain, it's like a mixture between sweat, urine, cigarette, sick, and it's just like a concoction of it. And I remember stepping out and I was like, "Rah, I'm a graduate, I had a good job a few months ago, like, I'm not stupid, but I'm stood here. What's this all about?" I ask myself that question every day. Why am I here? What am I here to learn? It's like, being in prison, I was able to spend time focusing on myself for the first time ever, looking at myself for the first time ever, thinking, who am I? What do I really want to be? What do I stand for? And actually accepting that me being smart and me being, lucky or whatever I thought I was, I clearly wasn't that lucky, and I clearly wasn't smart enough. And actually being smart alone is not enough. So when I moved to an open prison, they had a course there to do gas training. And I was like, do you know what? That's a good opportunity. Like, I'm here, I've been reading a lot, I've been writing a lot. Like, what else can I gain out of this? And there was a course there, and I was like, right, that's what I'm going to do. And I went and did it. And at first, even before I actually enrolled in it, they was like, nah, you know what? I went to the interview to do it because a lot of people want to try and get onto it. And they was like, look, you're overqualified, you've got a degree, like, this is not really something for you.
Man, this is mad, it's all in prison.
Yeah.
It's so weird to think that it's like that.
Yeah. They didn't want me to, but they were just thinking it doesn't make sense. Like, you worked as an account manager, like, and I was like, no, I think I could do something with this. Anyway, I did it, and then when I got out, the actual reality of life hit in, because I was trying to get a job, couldn't get a job. It's like, I'm going for interviews, or not even interviews, ringing people, emailing, no one's getting back to me. And I was like, what am I going to do? Eventually, I contacted one of my friends who was working for a firm, and they were doing council installations. And I said to him, look, can you ask your boss if I can come and work for free? So he said, all right, cool. So he rang him, and then literally an hour later, he was like, yeah, he said you can come tomorrow. I was like, I'll be there. I turned up, and I literally worked as hard as I could. I mean, literally, like, I was sweating, and I was like probably 1.5 stone heavier than I am now. I'd all been pumped up just for sitting there doing weights for how long. And my job basically was to run around and help people. So I was running, picking up boilers, running the radiators, and running everything that everyone needs. And all day I would run around. So there's like teams in one house. So you'd have one guy doing the bathroom, one doing the cylinder, one doing the boiler. I would help each one of those with whatever they needed, whether it be fittings or whatever.
You was a blessing to everybody.
I was on it. Yeah, and I was just running. And come to lunchtime, and like the guys are taking breaks, and I'm like, not really feeling to take a break. They're taking 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'm like, nah, do you know what? I'm gonna keep looking at what they're doing. I'm gonna understand it. We didn't have internet really then, but I was like on my book looking at, oh right, that's from that, because I had a theoretical knowledge, but I didn't have the practical. But some of these guys knew me from before, and they was like, Winston, what are you doing? Like, why are you working so hard? But they didn't get the vision. And my vision was that, well, actually, I can't get a job. It's gonna be very difficult for me to get a job, but if I can now get my practical knowledge with this, I could actually maybe start a business, and I could go and do something. And also, I'd met a new woman at the time who's now my wife, and I wanted to show her actually what I was actually about. And that was part of the drive as well, as much as to show society that what I've got. But the guys there, they just couldn't get it. But the crazy thing was about 3 years later, I had a company of 20 guys. And out of 8 or 9 guys that worked in that company, I don't know, 7, 8 of them were working for me or had worked for me at one point. But because they hadn't had that vision and that same focused desire to succeed, they didn't get it. And I just leapfrog people. So it's kind of like, so going back to the original point of, that was like the biggest failure, but actually was the springboard to my greatest success to that point then.
That's mad. That's crazy, That's crazy. Well, it's funny because we've only met over the last maybe 2 years, 2 years. And when I first met you, I would never have taken the old Winston you just kind of explained, or thought you went through all that stuff. So it's so interesting to have conversation with people, because you don't know what people have gone through. And also, we started playing football together and all that sort of stuff, and I've seen your motivational stuff, and it made me think, like, where did this guy come from? Like, what other stuff did he been through? And then obviously now hearing this and a few other things, you're like, wow, like it's just nice to hear people talk, really. I'll be honest with you. It's
100%,
good to hear everyone's got like a story, but that story is crazy, and it's nice to know that you've actually turned it around, because a lot of people don't actually turn it around, don't know how to turn it around, or don't get that certain level of energy to force them to. So it's actually nice to know that you've, you know, sorted your life out, and yeah, man, it's proper. And also just being able to help other people with your story. For me, it's amazing, man.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't know it's necessarily about, you know, turning your life around, but it's about how can you just change your circumstance to be the best that you can be. And obviously, as a byproduct, that you people say all the time, you turn your life around, but it's like, actually, do you know what? It's just actually putting that focused energy into being the best version of you.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to ask you to like help us visualize a younger you. So maybe take us back to school days. So maybe like a teenager. What was you like at school? Was you? You already said you didn't try much.
Yeah, I didn't try much. I mean, I was a good kid. I was a good kid, and yeah, I didn't put a lot of effort in, because I just said I thought I'd get by my wits. But the thing is that now when I think back to it, there was quite a few incidents where if I was looking at my younger self now as an adult, I'd have been like, that's not quite right. You know, a couple of things where when I was young, you know, 9, 10 years old, where I, you know, punched boys at school, blacked their eye, and we was playing rounders, and this boy stood across the fourth base or something, so I was running round and it made me get out because I had to go around him. He got in my way, but I went back and picked the bat up and went back to him and started hitting him with the bat. But the thing is, like, you know, the teacher dealt with it, whatever, but as an adult, I'd be like, something's not quite right with that child. Why is he using such excessive you know, violence to resolve a situation? Like, we need to dig into this. But so there was some certain red flags there, and then like by the age of about 13, I started smoking weed, and that was like, although again, I was still doing okay at school, I was starting to verge onto things which I shouldn't have been involved in. But talking about not having someone there to say, Winston, look, this ain't right. That's not you. You don't need to be going down that path. Where you're currently at, you know, studying, you know, doing your sport, doing your music, doing the things, doing your acting, doing the things that enhance you. That's where you need to be going. But that conversation never came. So slowly, as I just started getting older, started drifting, and it was almost like a duality of existence, in that I was still on the educational path, still doing, you know, A-levels, GCSEs, A-levels, university, but at the same time getting further and further apart in my other existence. You know, 17 years old, I was living in the back of a Vauxhall Nova, spent like 3 months in the middle of winter. Like when I was at school, I would pull up outside the side of my school, start the engine at probably about 10, 11 o'clock at night, get it really, really warm, then jump in the back with a sleeping bag, sleep for a few hours, wait until I'm freezing, and then jump in the driver's seat, get it warm again, and then jump back in the back with a sleeping bag for a few more hours till I get through the night. And I'd done that for a few months, and then went to school the next day and in the morning had showers.
So no one knew you did this, obviously, like the school wouldn't have known that you...
No, only one of my friends who worked at the sports centre who let me in to have the showers. But yeah, no one else knew. So it was just strange, you know. So as I said, leading one life, but then being involved in something completely the wrong way as I was getting older, and that never really even come to a head until I found myself standing on that landing, looking down at all these people, asking the questions of, why am I here? Literally, and I carried on living, you know, as I was living in that existence, and I never really stopped living that until I ended up back on that landing, looking out and asking that question of, why am I here?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Oh, okay, cool. So, have you got any role models? So anyone you look up to or anything like that? Or throughout your life?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and like I was saying, I hadn't got role models. Yeah, growing up, there wasn't role models there. But I had a role model probably when I was about 16, 17, and he was the boyfriend of a family member. But he wasn't the kind of role model that I needed at that time. And he was, 7, 8 years older than me. And he was, the big man. He was tough. He wasn't scared of people. He was drinking. He was doing drugs. He was at nightclubs all night. And I used to look up to him thinking, yeah, he's a man. That's what
we've all done that.
That's what being a man is supposed to be. And I started, hanging around with him, emulating him, wanting to be like him. And then when people knew that I was with him, they started giving me a different level of respect as well. That then gave me, I think, a lot of sort of freedom to start actually the things that they've been bubbling inside of me, this anger, this just wanting to attack the world. It gave me like a freedom to just do whatever I wanted. And actually it was, and I don't feel no bad feeling towards the guy, because he himself was clearly struggling on whatever else and find it hard to navigate through life. But the problem was, it gave me like the keys to just go and do and be however I wanted to be in a negative way. So actually that role model, again, it's not his fault. I don't blame anyone. You have to take responsibility for every action that you take. But actually at that point, a role model who I shouldn't have been following, and actually ended up behaving in that way for a certain amount of years, that got me further and further away from this where I should have been.
Mad, isn't it? So if it was someone that had a positive, if he was older, maybe, I won't say older, but say he was like someone you looked up to, but in a positive way, it probably would have sent you a different direction.
100%. And that's part of the stuff that goes on in our charity. We have mentors and we work with the boys to give them that guidance.
Yeah.
Them key years, 15, 16, they're key years. And and not having that, I can understand the importance of having a positive role model, because I've seen I've lived the experience of having a negative role model.
Do you think that if you did have a positive role model, you would recognise how important role models can be to children, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I can only imagine for people that have, for young men that have good fathers in their lives, or good uncles in their lives, and for them to then go, oh yeah, my dad, my uncle, they taught me a lot when I was younger. But then can you just imagining it? But I can only speak from my experience of knowing what it's like to have a negative role model, to then know how important it is to have a positive role model.
Yeah, 'cause I think a lot of people that I know have had good role models, sometimes I think they take for granted what they've had. There's certain things that you learn subconsciously. You don't actually realise you're learning these things. And I think if you can be like a role model like you are to these children, I think without them realising, they're actually getting some, because some of them might not be ready to come over to you and actually listen to what you've got to say. But I think if they did, even if they forced themselves, I think subconsciously they could actually get something from it. I think it's very important that you do that and make yourself known in South London, do you say?
So look, I don't actually have interaction with the boys.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, very, very limited. In terms of, I think just over a year ago we went to the Ministry of Housing and Education or something and did a talk, and one of the boys was there giving a talk on behalf of the charity. I'm more on, say, board level, talking about strategy, talking about governance, and more about how we actually run as a charity. Then we've got the CEO who then deals with day-to-day running of the organisation, if that makes sense. So we more oversee what goes on. Okay. But my day-to-day stuff is fundamentally with my children, with my nephews, and with any other young person that cares to listen, or I can add a positive impact to, I'll offer it. Yeah
100%. Okay, so is anyone you've learnt from, not your role model, someone else? It could be someone in the public eye. It could be somebody that you've adopted their kind of mindset or whatever. You might have learned something from somebody on YouTube or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I was about 21, 22, and funny enough, my mum, she gave me a book on Awaken the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins, or Tony Robbins they call him. And I read his book, and it's basically a self-development book. And it was all about your mind, your physiology, the language you use, all about being the best version of yourself. And it got me thinking. I didn't necessarily change that much what from reading it, but it really got me thinking. And one thing I did from one exercise was about giving up an addiction, and I stopped smoking from it. So I followed this set, program and whatever else he had written out, and I followed it, and I stopped smoking. I was like, oh, okay, it works. And then, but then it didn't always work, because the morning that I got arrested, I was walking down the road doing my morning affirmations. I was walking along, 7 in the morning, every single day, and every single way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every single day, every single way I'm getting better and better. 5 hours later, I'm in the back of a police car on the way to prison. So it didn't quite work out. But I think the importance is having those seeds. So that seed was planted there, at that point. And then when I got to have the time to reflect, I then got a copy of it and reread it again back to front.
Okay.
And front to back. That was important. And then another thing about being able to see something. I watched a BBC news article, and it was Noel Clarke. And I see him on TV, and I was like, who's that? This is like 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm eating my porridge. And he says, Noel Clarke, actor, writer. And I was like, it's on the BBC. And it was like, he's a young man, it's like look like me, I could be doing that. I then wrote my name on my wall and put actor, writer. And then funnily enough, years later, we connected and actually met a few years ago. And he gave me some advice, and I was just like, appreciated. Just last week, I finished writing my first film. So it's funny how all those years down the line, these little seeds can then start to flourish. But it's important to have the seeds.
Yeah, so that's the key. Yeah, it's the seeds, isn't it? You're right. That's planted, and you kind of just, it does send you in a direction at some point. Advice. Have you got any advice for anybody? Anyone trying to aspire to something or to achieve something?
The first thing I'll say is, I believe massively in everything happens for a reason. Everything. So, and that helps me so much, because if something goes a way that I don't want it to go, or wouldn't like it to go, and you might sometimes call it a failure or a problem or whatever it is, when you're asking the question of, okay, but why is this meant to happen? That gives you so much opportunity to then look at other possibilities. It's like, by saying, okay, sure, I was meant to have gone to prison because I learnt my skill. I built a business from it. I met my wife on home leave. My eldest son was conceived on day release. There was things for why that was supposed to happen, and I used that in day to day, and have used it day to day ever since. So just look for what can you learn out of a situation, and understand that's supposed to happen. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And I will say that if you're trying to do something and it's not happening for you, I think what you've got to look at is, what value are you bringing to what you're trying to do? So when I was, and I get loads of people contacting me to try and get onto this plumbing heating thing, and I want to come and be an apprentice and whatever else. But it's like, but what can you do? Can you put a pipe together? Can you fit a toilet? What can you do? Because when you can bring something, and it can be any industry, any business, when you can bring something then of value, then people will start to want to give you something for it or bring you in. So if you're not where you want to be, what value are you bringing towards what it is you're trying to achieve? And then if you're really not, you think you're putting loads of value in, you think you're putting loads of effort in, you think you should be further ahead than where you are, then the last thing I'll say is that if no one's bringing you in, go out and create something. Go out and make something happen. Don't wait for permission. Just start something, because nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Okay, have you got a story for us that you was told no and you thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway?
Oh, yeah. So I said I started acting as a kid, and then I stopped. Obviously, you know, as I was getting older, it wasn't cool to be playing the tree. You know, when you're meant to be, you're meant to be a guy, and you're there acting. So whatever, I dropped that out. But then about 7-8 years ago, I just felt something in me was missing, and I felt something maybe was sort of dying and was dead, and I was just some form of my life was not being expressed, because I was just working, you know, putting in boilers, doing my heating. Obviously, had my family, and you know, loved that, and I got my work, but something was not right. So me and my wife, we were driving down the road where it was on a weekend, and I said to her, "Do you know what? I'm thinking about getting back into acting." And she says to me, "Why do you want to do that for? You're not going to become Brad Pitt or anyone." And I'm like, like low blow, you know? And so I took that as a no, you know, like, forget it. I went off and started taking acting classes without telling my wife. So I would go into you know, West London and whatnot, and set the guys up on jobs, because we had various like building sites running at the time. So I'd go first thing in the morning, set them all up, make sure they're all right. Then I'll divert my phone to the admin girl. Yeah, I say, "Look, I'm not contactable for the next few hours. I've got meetings." So she would take all my phone calls, and I'll sneak off to my acting class, and I'll do acting classes all day. And then I'll come back in the afternoon, like, "Hey, what's going on? Have I missed anything?" And I did that for months, yeah. And then about 9 months later, I met up with a friend of mine, Coralie. Shout out to Coralie. She's a casting director, and she's got you know, an agency. She said to me, "Look, you know, I've been doing I told her I've been, you know, training," and she says to me, "Okay, do you know what? Why don't I represent you?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." She goes, "Yeah, we get some shots done." And I'm thinking, I'm going to go off to a studio, and she goes, no, we'll just do it here. So we was at her place, and she just got a background. We took a couple of shots. This is like Friday morning. Friday afternoon, she rings me, says, "Oh yeah, I've got you an audition." I'm like, "Okay, what's that for?" And she goes, "Oh, it's Game of Thrones." And I'm like, "What's that?" She goes, "Google it." So I Googled it, and I was like, "That's all right." And I says, "What have I got to do?" He goes, "Oh, you got to mug someone." And I was like, "I got this. No worries, it's easy." And so I went to the audition, and then the following Friday, she says to me, "Oh, you've been penciled." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And that basically, if you get penciled, it means you might have got it, yeah. You're in the running. But then the Sunday comes, and me and my wife, we go to the hospital because my wife's 8.5 months pregnant. They say, "Look, baby's got to come early. We're going to have to give you a C-section on Tuesday." So it's like, great, you know, all this happy joy and all that. And then on the Monday, my agent, she calls me. It's like, "Winston, you got the role. You got to fly to Croatia tomorrow." And I'm like, "Croatia tomorrow? Having a baby tomorrow?" Like, and it was like crazy. So I then had to go back to my wife and tell her what I've been up to. I come clean, and you know, we had a few words and that, and eventually they let me stay for the birth. And in the early hours of the Wednesday morning, I flew to Croatia and filmed Game of Thrones. And that for me, as I said, the best week of my life. But a massive example of, it doesn't matter who it is who does not believe in your dream. It doesn't matter who it is who tells you can't do something or you shouldn't do something. If you believe in it, if you want to do it, protect that dream, go for that dream, and you try and make it happen.
100%, man. 100%. That's actually so sick. Man did acting lessons without his missus knowing, and then went and got casted for flipping Game of Thrones. That's mad.
Yeah,
that is
crazy,
nuts.
crazy.
Well, I bet she don't. She's not angry about that now, is she? She's probably thinking to herself, do you know what?
She doesn't remember the conversation.
Swear.
She doesn't remember it. We spoke about it recently.
She's probably like, yeah, I told you to go and do that.
Yeah, so I'm saying. She doesn't remember it. She's like, no, I never. And I'm like, well, you know.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what have you got like any daily routines?
Daily routines? Yeah, I mean, look, I get up early. First thing I do is pray. I just say whatever it is that I'm thankful for. Mm-hmm. You know, some people call it, you know, gratitude, you know, giving thanks or whatever it is that, you know, your thing is. But for me, I pray. I say thank you, and whatever it is that comes to me that day. A lot of times, my family and kids, and you know, having a home and food and whatever. But whatever it may be, yeah, because then that gets me firing about what's good. Mm-hmm. Then I want to pray for people. So anyone that's come across my mind that day, the day before, that week, that I would like to give them some good energy to, I will pray on them and I will try and give them something. Mm-hmm. And then I meditate and I'll just sit with myself. I just sit. Often I will exercise 3-4 times a week. I'll do exercise straight away after. But having that as a grounding to start my day and to get in contact with myself and to get in contact with what I'm happy about and what I'm grateful for, and also then again, who can I try and even from first thing in the morning give some kind of blessing and good energy to, that just sets me up.
Yeah.
Because it don't matter what I do for the rest of the day, because I've started from that point. I can then bounce to anything.
And normally after doing that, like you said, there will be loads of, it kind of opens you up for much more, isn't it? So you can kind of. That's a good way of starting. 100%. So when you say working out, do you go to the gym or do you just do it at home?
At the moment, just at home. I mean, even before I wasn't really going to the gym. You know, just do like, you know, burpees, press ups, sit-ups, whatever. You know, just to keep in shape.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Just start doing that myself. All right, cool. So why do you do what you do? And I'm gonna go to, because you do so many things, I'm going to ask you, why do you do the charity stuff?
2017, had this business, you know, 20-man company. I was focused on, you know, building this company. I had offers to sell it in 2016, which I turned down. 2017, it collapsed. And these ideas about, you know, making millions, selling it for whatever, all these things which were really, quite a lot of them about materialistic and putting, you know, whether it would be financial or what I have, possessions, sort of quite up on the list. When I lost everything, I kind of was just like, wow, like, where am I? Again, another moment of self-reflection, because that was another failure. I then got to a point of going, do you know what? Really what I want to do is just be of service. That's what I really want to do. And like, you know, it's not all deep, like, you know, but it is my truth. I want to try and help as many people as I can. And it was just quite a random one with the charity, because I got invited along to just come to a meeting. The man who invited me was the former chair, and he said, look, just come down for, you know, a couple of meetings a year if you can, just to support whatever you can. But seeing the work that they do and knowing my own journey, I knew how important the work was, that what they do. So yeah, I just know that giving back and helping others to have the things which I didn't have, you know, for me is like so important. So, you know, that's why I do what I do with the charity.
Cool, man. No, that's real, man. And what would you be doing if you weren't doing the 1,000 things that you're doing now?
The 1,000 things that I'm doing now. Well,
anything that you think, actually, I could have done. I wish I'd done that, actually, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, look, two things is, one, I could easily have been in prison, and the other thing was, I found an old clipping from when I was about 12, and it was like a football team I was involved in, and I wrote down on this what I want to be, and I was like, I want to be a lawyer, and I did my work experience at a corp, and actually, it's still been one of those things in my mind, like, could have been a barrister. Maybe I could have been a barrister. But, you know, again, everything for a reason. That wasn't my path. I looked at actually doing it a few years ago, but when I broke down the actual financial part of it, I actually couldn't afford to do because the actual income is not actually that high as what people think it is. Yeah, that's one thing I've loved to have been doing. But yeah, hopefully, full time we'll be acting or writing, producing. Hopefully, that's the dream.
Yeah, that sounds cool, man. Sounds cool. It's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah,
It's a lot of work. Those things take a lot, man.
Yeah.
Take a lot. All right, that's it. Thanks, Vincent. Thanks for coming. Before you go anywhere, let us know where we can find you.
Main place Instagram, Winston Davies 1.
Winston Davies 1. And also the charities.
Oh yeah, so just Southside Young Leaders Academy. Yeah, if you want to donate please. Yeah, yeah.
Heating business.
Avenue Heating. Yeah, need a new boiler.
He does everything. All right, that's it. End of the episode. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, see you guys soon.